Hello, world. We are live. Welcome to the December 2024 edition of the Laravel Worldwide Meetup. My name is Dan Sapelsa, and along with my co-host, Margaret Tavares, we're thrilled to once again bring you an incredible speaker from the Laravel community. Today's speaker is no different. And speaking of my co-host, Margaret, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic today, Dan. Thank you very much. And
excellent. I'm doing great. We were just reflecting. We're getting to the end of the year here. It's hard to believe we've been doing this for almost a year now, but we are really excited about today's speaker. But before that, like as we always do, we have a few sort of community related things. So without further ado, what do we have here, Margaret?
All right, thanks so much, Dan, and welcome to anyone who's new and welcome to all who's returning. For our first resource here, we have Laravel News. So if you haven't heard about this great resource, it's ran by the great Eric Barnes. They also have a weekly email newsletter, so you can sign up at laravelnews.com. And they also have a podcast ran by Jake Bennett and Michael Drinda. So it's where they discuss all the latest Laravel releases in the last week, tutorials and happenings in the Laravel community. So a great resource to know what's going on. Up next, we have the Laravel podcast. If you haven't heard about this wonderful podcast, it's hosted by Matt Stouffer. And then all this season, they actually had Taylor Otwell join him to answer a lot of the questions in the Laravel community. And so if you want to learn more, you can check them out in their latest episode at laravelpodcast.com. If you haven't heard about Laravel Jobs is a great, wonderful resource for anyone that's looking to hire Laravel developers, or if you're looking to post a job, or if you're looking for any jobs in Laravel. It's a great resource for any of your Laravel job needs, and you can check them out at laraveljobs.com. As well as Laracast, if you want to learn a little bit of Laravel. Yeah, a big thank you to Jeffrey Way for running this awesome resource for anyone looking to build their Laravel skills and a platform to learn with others in the Laravel community. So you can check them out at laracast.com. So upcoming events that we have Laracon EU. It's 2 months away. Tickets are unfortunately sold out, but they do have a waiting list. So if you'd like to learn a little bit more, it's going to be happening on February 3rd and 4th, 2025, and you can check them out at laracon.eu. Another wonderful resource is the GTA PHP User Group. So sometimes they meet online, but also in person in the Greater Toronto Area in Ontario, Canada. So if you want to learn a little bit more about them, you can join some PHP enthusiasts at meetup.com. You can follow that link there. And then a wonderful thank you to our host sponsor. And also in their support for helping to relaunch this meetup. They have a great team of developers. So if you have a Laravel problem, they'd be happy to help you out. And make sure to hit them up at vehicle.com or go at vehicle.com. And speaking of Vehicle, if you were intrigued by Vehicalian Colin DeCarlo's talk at Laracon US this past summer on AI, you can scan that QR code to figure out what they're up to currently.
Just leave that QR code up for an extra moment.
And once again, you can sign up for our giveaway. So big thank you to our sponsor, JetBrains, for giving away a couple of one-year subscription codes to any JetBrains IDE. At the end of this meetup, we'll also announce the rules as well. So you can scan that QR code and the winners will receive an email from our community manager, Lee. And so watch out for that email. And I'm going to pass it off to Dan now to introduce our guest for this month.
There you have it. If you've been around the Laravel community for any period of time, you've probably heard of our guest today. Is in fact the creator of Laravel, the founder and CEO of Laravel. Taylor Otwell is joining us, and we are so thrilled. There's so much going on at Laravel these days, but Taylor has taken some time out of his day to come and join us and answer a bunch of questions the community has about the forthcoming release of Laravel Cloud. So without further ado, let's bring him in here. Taylor, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you all?
We are doing excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really thrilled to have you here. There's a lot of excitement in the community, as you know, about Laravel Cloud and the upcoming release. So as in means of preparing for this talk, we had the vehicle team and a bunch of social channels reached out to a number of people to see kind of what questions the community had. We were blown away by the response. We had many, many questions. We've tried to boil them down to, I think, questions that encompass a lot of what the community wanted to know. That being said, people in the chat, if you have questions, feel free to post them in there. We'll touch on them if we can, but if not, definitely the vehicle team here will follow up in the comments and afterwards. And if there's unanswered questions, we'll try to reach out to those people as well. So without further ado, Taylor, let's get into it. So first off, there's a number of questions we've received, sort of just in terms of like kind of what is cloud and how does it compare to some other things in the marketplace, and even how does it compare to some the other offerings of Laravel in terms of hosting, right? We had questions like, is it going to be like Vercel? Is it going to be like Heroku? Is it going to be like Vapour? If you had to, kind of categorize and give a marketing spiel a little bit for those three products, Laravel Forge, Vapour, and now Laravel Cloud, how do you differentiate those three, and how do you see those three playing together?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the biggest differentiator between the products is fully managed versus self-managed or maybe semi-managed. So starting with Laravel Cloud, that's going to be a fully managed platform, very similar to something like Vercel or Heroku, where all of your applications are actually running within our Kubernetes clusters on our infrastructure. And we're monitoring that, we're managing that, we're observing all of that for you all of the time. And if something goes wrong with one of those servers, it's really on us to get it back up and running at the end of the day. That's in contrast to something like Laravel Forge, where you bring your own cloud provider account, could be DigitalOcean or AWS or someone like that. And we create the servers on your behalf on those accounts. But ultimately, you and that cloud provider are responsible for maintaining the servers. We sort of give you a dashboard for doing things conveniently that's common for PHP developers, like installing MySQL or installing Redis or configuring queue workers. But we don't actually manage that infrastructure on our side necessarily. And so both approaches have pros and cons, right? On Laravel Cloud, you kind of get to sleep at night knowing that all of your apps are running on our infrastructure, and it's also sort of the easiest path to getting Laravel live, I would say, especially if you don't have server management experience or managing servers isn't something you're interested in. What's great about Forge is you get to maintain full access to your infrastructure. You have full root access to the server command line. You can do whatever customizations you want. So I think we see both of these things as really valuable tools for different use cases. I think the quickest onboarding is going to be on Laravel Cloud, and that's where I think most people should get started. If you just love managing servers and you need some sort of, or you want to bring control of your own cloud account to Forge, then I think that's the better case for you. And Vapour is very similar to Forge, where it's you bring your own AWS account. The main difference is we provision Lambda functions instead of servers in that case. So Vapour is sort of self-managed serverless functions for Laravel.
Excellent. Yeah, that's very, very thorough. I almost think of it as like Forge is you're sort of hiring a DevOps assistant, whereas, with Cloud, you're hiring the whole DevOps team just to take care of it, right?
Yeah. And Laravel's in the unique position to offer both. It's usually not like that, right? Like usually if you have sort of a cloud hosting company, they're typically fully managed, I would say. And it's unusual to also offer a service that allows the customer to bring their own cloud account and provision VPS servers. So I think Laravel is going to be unique in that way, but I think unique in a very good way where we are offering both options to customers. And you get to pick whichever, best suits your needs.
Excellent. And then, yeah, I think to kind of piggyback on that, there was some other questions about, like, do you see one of those things going away? But I think based on what you've said, the answer is probably no.
No, the answer is definitely no. So obviously we've been working a lot on cloud, but we've also been doing a lot of work on Forge behind the scenes, which I think you'll see more of next year. And we have big plans for both. And for Vapour as well, I wouldn't even say that people should consider that off the table or as something that's going to go away. I think it's a little bit more of a niche use case for people that really, need to run on serverless for whatever reason. And I think we'll be there to help you with that. But we definitely have big plans for Cloud and Forge, and I would not expect either of them to go away.
I think you made a lot of people very happy to hear that. So another question we got was just in terms of the infrastructure, and I think you've touched on this in the Laravel podcast before, but is Laravel Cloud itself built on AWS?
Yeah, everything pretty much runs on AWS. We do work with various partners for some pieces of the infrastructure, whether it be sort of edge DDoS protection or serverless databases or Redis, but the core of the infrastructure runs on AWS. We feel like that's where most of the other tooling is for developers. If you want to work with an external service, many times those services are also on AWS, so we want to keep the latency low.
So that's a good consideration.
Next question that I do have, I'm sorry, Dan, do you have a follow-up to that?
No, I just handed it off to you.
Okay, cool. So I know you touched a little bit on this, Taylor, in the first question or the first answer that you gave, where it's like, if you want to get started, like start here. But to go a little bit deeper, like what's really the target audience for Laravel Cloud? And this is a question asked by Mason Schmidt. So is it for beginners? Is it for SMBs, startups, or enterprise scale applications? Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
I would say all of the above. And as we've been going through our early access period, we've been targeting all of those groups to some extent. So we have people in there that are just sort of spinning up individual products for sure. That's always been a popular or a big segment of the Laravel market, has been sort of soloists or hobbyists that are building side projects or trying to launch their own business. We also have SMBs in there, that are deploying a little bit more like serious products, you might say, or production projects that have a little bit more scale and a little bit more traffic. We're definitely catering to all of those use cases, and even enterprise, which is not something we've historically marketed to very aggressively, but we know that Laravel is being used in enterprise use cases that are out there, and we would like to, cater to them on cloud as well. And so I think it's tough to try to build a product that suits all of these markets, but I think we're trying our best to make it really work well for all of those different market segments. And, we'll see how it goes when we get it launched, but I'm pretty optimistic that we've got a really great product for all of those people.
Yeah, I just think it's like a testament to everything you're providing for the community. You're listening to everything and trying to do everything for everyone too.
Right.
I think that makes a lot of sense in just terms of like the values of Laravel or what it offers. It's like it's for a beginner dev who's just trying to getting into building a web application right up to an enterprise scale application, like Laravel can do it. So it's great that the product reflects that as well. So yeah, this kind of gets to a big question. You touched on early access there, and I think this community and this audience can appreciate what it takes to launch a product and kind of get that last 10 or 20% done. Do you have at this point, Taylor, any further insight into like when general access might be available?
I mean, we're hoping to have this out, I would say, roughly in the February time frame. Mm-hmm. I think it's okay to say that. That's what we're shooting for. It's been the biggest project we've ever done. To be honest, I feel like I announced it a little too early. I would prefer not to announce it so early, like before the release date. It's not how I've historically released products. Like when I released things like Forge, it came out like the next day. You know what I mean? Or when I announced Vapour, it came out the next week. But Cloud was a really big project, and we had more of an extended beta period compared to other products we've launched in the past. So, we'll see how we do things in the future. I think I may revert back to a little bit more of how I used to announce things, where they came out really quickly after they were announced. But anyway, back to the original question. We're targeting February, and I think that's pretty realistic. I think it will be roughly within that time frame, so not too long now.
I mean, I think Q1 was what was said, so that's definitely Q1. I think a lot of people are excited to hear that, even if it's not exactly that. And kind of connected to that, you talked about the early access or the onboarding. How's that process been going, and what's the feedback been like from users?
Yeah, it's been really great. So we started out really small. I think our first early access cohort was just like 10 to 12 people. We're now up to, I think, almost 100 people in Cloud, and we'll be continuing to ramp that up all the way to launch, basically. And the feedback's been really good. The feedback so far, so people have loved the interface. They've loved how fast it is to deploy, how fast it is to get started. A lot of the feedback of things people want were things that were already very much on our radar, which was good to hear, that we're not way off track in what we're building. So I'm excited. I think the feedback has been really positive. And, we're going to keep rocking and rolling on some of the feedback we've gotten in terms of what people would like to see that they're not seeing right now. And I think we'll get it in there before launch. And so, yeah, overall, it's been a really positive experience, and the feedback has been actually really helpful. It's been great to get sort of people in there kicking the tires and deploying stuff.
Yeah, that's great. A lot of people that definitely want that platform to succeed. So they want to scratch their own itch and help the community too. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Margaret.
Cool. So the salesperson inside of me, I want to know, what will Laravel Cloud pricing look like?
Yeah. So pretty simple, I think. We'll start with the sandbox tier, which is going to be just $0. There's no fixed monthly cost, and you just pay for your compute usage. You can run a small app 24 hours a day on Laravel Cloud for roughly in the $5 to $7 a month range. However, if your app is just like a hobby project or a staging environment, you can turn on hibernation and we will put your app to sleep within a configurable time limit that you specify. It could be 5 minutes, could be 10 minutes of not receiving any traffic. We'll put the app to sleep and you do not pay for compute usage during that time. So that's a little bit different than Forge, where if you spin up a server, you are paying for that server generally 24 hours a day on DigitalOcean or AWS. If you receive traffic while your app is hibernating, we boot the app back up and it still will respond to the request. It will just take a few extra seconds to get that response out there. But that is a great way to really cut your costs. So I really love that, because if you have like a side project that you just I want to go ahead and put it on cloud so that other people can click around on it and try it out. You don't have to think like, oh, well, I'll have to pay, $5 a month for a little server to run that or whatever. I can just throw the app on cloud, turn on hibernation and not really think about it and probably just pay a few cents, for that app. So that's sort of the sandbox tier, where it's just totally usage-based pricing. What you don't get in the sandbox tier is the ability to scale to really high replica counts or sizes. So you couldn't spin up like 10 8 gigabyte replicas on a sandbox account. And in addition to that, you just get the Laravel.cloud domains. So this is similar to like the Vercel hobby plan, where you would get a Vercel.app URL. On Laravel Cloud, you get a Laravel.cloud app URL for all of your projects that you launch. To get the custom domains, you have to upgrade to the production plan, which currently sits about $20 a month. And then, of course, has the usage on top of that. And that unlocks the bigger replicas, custom domains, more advanced features that you would need for production apps.
Okay, awesome. So there's a little bit for everybody, like whatever you want to try and learn. It invites people to learn it too that way. So that's awesome.
Yeah, we're trying to make it really easy. So like if you use one of our starter kits and you go through like a Laravel bootcamp and you want to just throw your product on cloud or your project, you don't really have to think, oh, well, that's going to be $20 a month or $50 a month or whatever. You can just throw it out there on the sandbox plan, have a Laravel.cloud URL and pay almost nothing, to have that out there when it's hibernating.
Okay. Follow up to that, I guess, do you plan on like building any like monitoring tools so people avoid spending more than like a certain amount of money when using it?
Yes. Yeah. So we've got sort of billing alerts that we're baking into the system. The main area where this would actually be relevant would be more on bandwidth. It's not entirely possible to have totally runaway compute on Laravel Cloud because it is server based under the hood. So that's in contrast to Vapour, where if you're on Lambda and you get a huge burst of traffic, AWS will just scale the Lambdas up to thousands of Lambdas. On cloud, you specify a minimum and maximum auto scaling range for how many servers you want us to allocate to your app. So maybe you set a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 8. And if you get traffic, we'll scale it up to 8 server instances running your app automatically. But we won't go beyond that. There is a maximum. But regardless of that, you can set billing thresholds and alarms and alerts so that, if your total bill is exceeding a certain amount, you want us to shut your apps off. That would definitely be an emergency situation because your apps would go offline. But it is possible to actually configure that in Laravel Cloud.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Very cool.
And classic thing there. Hopefully, if you're scaling that much, it means you're that pricing is not a problem, right? So
yeah, I would say though that people should not be super scared about that. I don't think, because the fundamental nature of cloud is just architecturally different than Lambda and serverless, and doesn't necessarily suffer from some of the same like runaway compute bills that you might see in that type of environment. Knock on wood, I think bandwidth is going to be the main one that you're going to want to watch.
Well, that's great. Yeah, definitely. We had a follow-up question. I think we've already touched on really though. People talking about like if they were traditionally used to using Forge and it's more of like a fixed cost with other limitations, but hey, I'm concerned about going to this dynamic pricing model, but I think you've kind of spoken to that, and there's definitely tools built into.
Really, it should end up being roughly similar to Forge. We bill you per minute or hour that your server is on and active, which is very similar to DigitalOcean. We bill for bandwidth just like DigitalOcean or anyone else would. And then, of course, like things like object storage, like S3, people are already used to usage-based pricing for that type of service, and we'll offer that as well, and under very similar pricing. So I think it actually will feel pretty similar to what you would expect if you're using Laravel Forge. The bills should be predictable and understandable, and you should know what you're getting into.
And I like the no-brainer aspect of it too, because especially if it's just for a toy project, it could end up being cheaper if it's hibernating, right? Than that $5 box I'm paying for constantly, right? So
yep, 100%.
Awesome.
Next question that we got here. So this is somebody that's currently using Laravel Forge. They wanted to know what would the move to Laravel Cloud look like for them? Would there be any tooling to help him migrate any existing Forge setup to Laravel Cloud, or from Laravel Vapour to Cloud?
Yeah, so I'm sure we'll continue to improve this story over time. There will definitely be documentation that sort of walks you through the overview of what it looks like to migrate from something like Forge or Vapour to Cloud. I think the big one is going to be probably your database and where it is and how it's set up and how it's configured. Moving apps and workers from Forge or Vapour to Cloud is not that complicated. Moving data is always a little bit more complicated because it, could potentially involve downtime and backups and restores and things like that. But I think it just depends on where it is. It's possible that you could use Cloud with your existing database, depending on how it's configured and who can access it and what the access rules are. Or you could always, back up your database and restore it to a cloud-powered database if you want to bring totally everything into cloud. And like I said, we'll definitely have documentation and sort of guidance around that, and we'll see what kind of automated tools we might be able to build as we go, kind of as we hear from customers and what they're experiencing and what some of the common, situations are. But, we'll start with some docs and guides, and we'll go from there.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, let's look forward to it. Cool.
So that seems like, that could be a nice first step, especially if someone had a very intricate database setup, is they can leave their database where it is, right? And as long as you can connect remotely.
Yeah, that would be easiest. That would be like sort of the easiest path to migrating to cloud. And then you only really have to worry about, getting the app up and running on cloud on a Laravel.cloud domain, getting all the workers set up, and then just flipping over your production domain to point to the Laravel Cloud DNS records.
Cool. And then sort of connected to that, another similar concept of storage, right? If you have something like S3 storage or something like that, is that going to be a feature baked into Laravel Cloud where it will come with storage? And another one being, can I bring my own storage? It's similar to bringing my own database.
Yeah, it's definitely a feature we are baking into cloud, is S3 compatible file storage. So you can either use ours, which is sort of the most, I guess, like baked in, convenient, automatic way to go. If you're migrating an app and you already have S3 storage going, you could just keep using that. You could plug in your AWS keys in the environment variables of your Laravel Cloud app and just keep using whatever you're using, for object storage. And it really goes the same for database, right? Like if you're using Mongo Atlas or you're using PlanetScale or using some other managed database service, you can just continue using that on Laravel Cloud. We don't really restrict, what's outside services you can use. It's just a matter of plugging in the right config or environment variables and you're good to go.
Yeah. And I think if there are hesitations or challenges in people, fully kind of moving to Laravel Cloud, I suspect a lot of those would be around where the database lives and where that data ultimately lives and where maybe storage is and where that lives. So if I have the option to leave those where they are, I think for a lot of people that would alleviate a lot of those concerns or issues, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Right. Speaking of databases, going to the next question, I guess. Will Laravel Cloud support MySQL and Postgres or any other kind of databases?
Yeah, so it will definitely support Postgres, like I showed at Laracon. We are deep into implementing MySQL support as well. We've been long kicked off a work stream to support this with a lot of work already done. And I hope we'll have that buttoned up for GA or shortly after GA, if not at public launch. I think it will be a fast follow. We know that, based on data we have, roughly 90% of Laravel apps use MySQL. And so we know that's an important component of people's Laravel setups. And so, yeah, we'll definitely aim to support that.
Excellent. And again, if I had the SQLite database offsite, I could use that as well, right?
Yeah, if you had like a SQLite database on something like Terso, you could probably connect to that. To be fair, I haven't actually run that on cloud to test it myself, but I can't see why it wouldn't work. We've batted around figuring out different ways to support SQLite internally on cloud and externally through providers. And it may be that we end up with a solution there at some point, but I think at launch, we'll mainly see MySQL and Postgres that are as like the baked in options.
Awesome. Cool. We have a community question here, and we had sort of a number of questions in the same vein from Sasha Geisel. It says, will Laravel Cloud support a broad range of regions from the start? A lot of applications have a hard requirement for data storage in certain countries and regions.
Yeah, we are going to be rolling out to multiple regions. Right now we're in US and we're in the midst of rolling out our EU region. And I think there'll be more regions to follow. So yeah, we definitely hear that loud and clear. That's been, really common feedback that we've gotten from a lot of people, and we'll continue to kind of build out those regions, as we get closer to launch and post-launch.
Next one from the community. So this is from Joel Claremont. He actually was one of our speakers back in February this year. So thanks, Joel. But his question was, will Laravel Cloud support Docker image deployments?
We have not explored letting customers bring their own Docker images so far, but Laravel Cloud is Docker based. So, I don't want to speak out of turn from the infrastructure team. They might get mad at me, but I think it's, theoretically on the roadmap for down the line. I don't think it will be a feature at launch, but, apparently at least Joel is interested. So maybe there are more people that are interested. We'll see, once we get out there.
Awesome. Well, you heard it here. And then I guess follow up to this is kind of related as well. Again, from Mason Schmidt. Will Laravel Cloud have its own container orchestration like Amazon EC2 or Kubernetes?
I don't know if they mean like a similar question to Joel about bringing like your own container and letting us orchestrate it for you or auto scale it for you. Right now, we're really focused on sort of an opinionated Laravel stack that includes custom extensions. Like we install all the typical PHP extensions and let you opt into some extra ones. We have not gone down the road of exploring super custom Docker setups where like you're bringing your own Docker container that runs a Go application and we'll scale that for you. Again, I think like that's something I would not be surprised if that ends up on our roadmap at some point. But I think at launch, you'll see mainly a product focused on Laravel and shipping Laravel apps.
Okay, awesome.
There's another community question, and we definitely got a number in this vein. I think you spoke to this certainly in your presentation at Laracon, but Alejandro asks, will Laravel Cloud support preview deployments for GitHub pull requests similar to platforms like Vercel?
That's something we're definitely working towards. So honestly, one of my favorite features of Cloud is the ability to create new environments really quickly. So let's say you have a Cloud account, you create a new app, Laravel Worldwide Meetup app. And we create obviously like one environment for you and you deploy a branch to it. But it's very quick to just create another environment with its own different compute settings on a different branch of that application and deploy that out within like 1 minute. So this has been really useful, and it lets you do the preview deployments a little bit manually, but much more quickly than you would typically do on like Forge or Vapour, where if you get a PR and it's on a branch, you can just spin up a new environment from that branch, and we even prompt you with all the available branches. You can spin that up within a minute or two and have it running. So it's really, really fast and productive for that kind of workflow. And I think really the next small step for that is just prompting you in the PR itself. Hey, do you want us to create a new environment for the PR, or even have that be automatic? And we just kind of do that behind the scenes for you. But I think we will get there relatively quickly next year. And it's one of my favorite features of Cloud, honestly, is the ease of spinning up new environments for projects. And historically, that has always been kind of a pain.
That sounds awesome. I could see myself even just initially just using it for that, the ability to deploy those environments and test out different branches of the application very easily.
Yeah, it's so easy. It's really one of my top features.
Cool. And kind of connected to that, we have another question from Lucas. Can Laravel Cloud support multiple servers in a project with different configurations, like different versions of PHP and environment variables? Is that kind of what you were speaking to there, Taylor?
Yeah, so each environment is totally separate in how it's configured. So your production environment, could be auto scaling up to 8 replicas and could be on PHP 8.4 or something. And maybe you have a staging environment that's just 1 replica, and maybe it's on 8.5 in the future and has different sort of settings altogether. So yes, you can do that. You can also configure within the same environment. Like, so let's say your production environment, you have your web instances serving your web traffic. You can spin up dedicated worker instances that are not necessarily the same size as your web instance. So let's say you have 8 web instances that are like 4 gigabytes of memory and some level of compute. You could spin up 3 workers that are maybe, 12 gigabytes of RAM or something like that, and they're running all of your queue workers. So within the same environment, you can have different compute settings from your web and your workers. And then between environments, you can have different settings as well. So it's pretty flexible in how you set up your compute and environment variables and all that.
Well, that's great. That can really, as you're upgrading PHP versions and the framework version, just having the ability to have that isolated environment.
Yeah, totally. Just make a new environment and deploy it out in 1 minute with like a different PHP version, and like just be able to quickly see what happens on a Laravel.cloud URL, see if you get errors or whatever. Super easy to do.
And is there a database connected with that environment? Is there like a database per environment as well, or?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways to do that. You could just have, you provision, let's say, one serverless Postgres database. You could have multiple databases within that database sort of instance, if that makes sense. So a database cluster is what we call it. So you could picture that as like one Postgres server that you have lots of databases in. So when you make a new environment, we could create a new database within that cluster for that environment. You could also attach a totally separate database cluster to the environment if you really wanted to. You would just have sort of 2 database clusters that you're paying for at that point, but it's really up to you. Same with Redis. So you could have, the same Redis instance connected to multiple environments, or you could have different Redis instances connected to the different environments.
Lots of options. That's awesome.
A lot of people in the comments are very excited for previews, so that's pretty super awesome.
Yeah, and there's interesting things we can do. Like, I don't want to speak too far into the future, but like our serverless Postgres setup does allow us to branch your database. So with the data, with the schema, with everything attached. So, if you have a staging environment, you want to quickly branch off to try a different PHP version. We're working towards the point where you could create that new environment with a new database, but with a branch of the data already in place. So all of the data from your staging environment is copied over. This takes, seconds. You're testing it out on a new PHP version, and you can just quickly make sure things are working. So that's kind of what we're working towards.
Awesome. Wow, that's cool things to look forward to. All right, jumping into the next question that we got here. Will I be able to monitor my Laravel Cloud hosted application with Nightwatch? I know you mentioned a little bit, but yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, that's what there'll definitely be some level of basic integration between Cloud and Nightwatch in the sense that we want Nightwatch to be able to quickly import your cloud projects, and not only your cloud projects, but also your Forge sites. So Nightwatch is not coupled to either Cloud or Forge or even any of our hosting products. So if you're running your own Laravel app in your own AWS setup and you're not using Forge or Cloud, you can still use Nightwatch to monitor that application as well, just by installing the Nightwatch agent, and it will start reporting data back to Nightwatch. So yeah, Forge and Cloud, we're planning to be Nightwatch aware, you might say, but of course, no matter where you're running your Laravel app, you'll be able to use Nightwatch.
Nightwatch aside, will there be monitoring built into the cloud platform?
Yeah, there is basic monitoring built into the cloud platform. So you can see your CPU usage, your memory usage. You can see that for compute and your database in Redis. You can read your logs in the Laravel Cloud dashboard for access logs, for application sort of error logs, like your Laravel.log file, essentially. And that applies across your web, your queue, all of that. So you can search those logs. And Nightwatch, you definitely get sort of like that level deeper of observability where you're seeing a little bit deeper insight into your logs. You're seeing your slowest routes, your slowest database queries. We actually just started consuming Forge's production traffic into Nightwatch last week. So we are actually using Nightwatch on Forge now, which has been a big step for us because we're actually seeing Nightwatch with a pretty sizable production application. And what was cool is we sort of like immediately identified some interesting things in Forge. So for example, we noticed that for one customer in a certain situation, they were hitting a page and we were executing like hundreds of database queries. And it was really cool to see Nightwatch in action, like identify this very actionable thing that we could fix in Forge really, really quickly. So that was really exciting to see. And, it's great to be kind of dog fooding our own products in that way.
For sure. I know this is not a Nightwatch Q&A, but do you have any insight in terms of when Nightwatch will be generally available?
I think early next year. We'll see. I don't think we've nailed down a specific date. If I don't know. I hate throwing dates out there, but before the first half of next year, I think.
Awesome.
Sounds like a great opportunity for a Laravel Worldwide Meetup to follow up on that one.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, we have another community question from Andrew. Will Laravel Cloud use SQS or Redis for queues? Can I use Horizon to monitor my queues?
So you can use Redis, you could use the database queue driver, even would be like the simplest way to use queues on cloud. You can install Horizon. There's no reason you can't do that. So you can run, of course, queue workers using like queue work on cloud, but you can also configure just custom background processes that are monitored via supervisor behind the scenes. So you could throw out like PHP Artisan Horizon onto one of your instances, and that would just be running like normal. Honestly, pretty similar to how you would run it on Forge.
I was just thinking the same thing. Great. All right. All right. This is I'm sure the one you've gotten similar questions as well. It talks about what is the long-term roadmap for Laravel Cloud, including support for additional frameworks. And probably the biggest one we got is, can I put WordPress on it?
Yeah. So we kind of think about this as, you could think of it like three circles within each other. So like the core of our audience is Laravel. That's sort of like the bullseye of what we have been targeting for launch. I think like the next circle out, as the target gets a little bit wider, it's just other PHP frameworks. I know we've experimentally run Symfony on Laravel Cloud already. I think Nuno got it like actually booted up and running. So I think the next logical step for us would be supporting other PHP frameworks, whether that's Symfony or WordPress, or whatever else, Drupal, whatever else people are running in PHP, even just no framework PHP, right? Like the Peter Levels of the world, hopefully. And then the even wider circle than that would be something like multi-language support in cloud, which is something I'm personally interested in. And I don't think it's coming, it's not going to be there by Laracon, I don't think, but it's something, maybe late next year that we start kind of kicking the tires on, especially frameworks that are similar to Laravel, like Rails, like Django, like Phoenix and Elixir. I think we're interested in, and even dabbling in JavaScript a little bit with things like Express and Hano. So yeah, that's kind of how we're thinking about the long-term vision for what Laravel Cloud can be. We know that a lot of people doing Laravel are not just doing Laravel; they're doing other things too. So we want to, explore how we can support that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I could definitely see a use case there where I've got my main application on running on Laravel, but I've also got a WordPress marketing site. Just to be able to have everything under the same umbrella would be really nice. So
and same with like Statamic and other Laravel CMSs.
For sure. Yeah.
Next question we got here. How will Laravel Cloud handle scaling for applications, transitioning from side projects to production level hosting? I know you touched a little bit on that one, but maybe more focused on this.
Yeah, so I mean, the easiest starting point to cloud is our sandbox plan, where you just have the Laravel.cloud domains. When you're ready to go live into production, you would just go on the production plan, and then you would get your custom domain set up. We walk you through that with like a guided sort of wizard that walks you through verifying your domain, getting the DNS set up. Oh, awesome. And then it's a matter of just telling us, like how big you want us to scale your app. So what server size vertically, so like how much memory and CPU you want to allocate to your app, and then horizontally, how many replicas are you comfortable with us throwing behind your app if we need to. So again, you give us like a min and a max of what you're looking for, and we'll scale accordingly as traffic comes in.
Oh, definitely a lot
and
more.
With cloud, you get automatic, all cloud apps get automatic DDoS protection, SSL, things like that, just out of the box.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah, definitely. I mean, we definitely had a lot of questions related to security and that, but I think it hopefully goes without saying that, security, I'm sure, has been a foremost concern with everything that's been done in building the platform, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Another question from Andrew Minion, and this is sort of kind of ties back to one of the first questions there about like how does the platform structure, what does it offer? But can I SSH into my server or whatever is running my application and run artisan commands and inspect logs, or what's your answer to that?
So right now, no, you don't really get the full like shell access to do whatever you want. That's just the nature of like it being more of a fully managed platform. So if that's something that is like you absolutely need for your app, you may be the kind of team that wants to like explore Forge more. That being said, we are going to offer you the ability to just like fire off commands to the app. So if you want to run like PHP artisan cache clear or something, you can just do that straight from the Cloud UI and we'll dispatch that over to your app, you know. So you do get a little bit of that kind of arbitrary command line feel, but you don't have like full root access into the actual containers running the app in the Kubernetes clusters.
Yeah, I think I've used Heroku a little bit, and they have something similar where they expose like at least run artisan commands one way or another through the UI. So
yeah, I would love to build sort of like a Heroku style CLI too, where you can, you know, inspect your logs directly from the CLI, like a cloud logs command where it's just like tailing your logs directly to your terminal. There's so many cool things I would like to explore, honestly, for both Cloud and Nightwatch.
So actually kind of connected to that, and I think you touched on this in the Laravel podcast, but will there be like a public API available for Cloud that I can interact with?
I think over time, I think we'll launch. At launch, I would definitely like to have a way to trigger a deployment through the API, right? Because a lot of people are going to want to set up GitHub Actions or other like automated sort of release processes where they need to trigger a deployment programmatically. I think that's one of the most important API endpoints we need. But over time, we'll have like more of a full API to list projects, environments, things like that.
Cool.
Another question from the community. So from Michael Stauffer, will there be similar features in Laravel Cloud as there are in Forge? For instance, the ability to set up backups, SSH keys, monitoring, start, stop Laravel scheduler, start, stop inertia, SSR, maintenance mode, etc.
Yeah, very similar feature set to all of that stuff. So inertia SSR, Octane, scheduler, those are all just toggle switches in Laravel Cloud, very similar to how it's set up in Laravel Forge. I think maintenance mode is the same. It's been a while since I actually tinker with maintenance mode in Cloud, but I think it's the same. What else did they mention? Yeah.
The SSH keys, monitoring, Laravel scheduler.
Yeah, the scheduler and all that. SSH keys kind of goes back to previous question. You don't kind of get that full SSH terminal access. Monitoring is baked into Cloud in terms of logs and CPU and memory and all of that. And definitely the scheduler and inertia stuff is just toggle switches within Cloud.
Okay, awesome.
All right. Well, we are moving through here. We've covered so much. Thank you, Taylor. We are actually kind of getting to the end of our questions. Had a lot in the chat. I think we've touched on a lot of the questions in the chat, but like we said, just leave some comments on the video after, and our team here at Vehicle will follow up with people and answer as many questions generally as we can. So, have sort of just a couple questions to kind of wind things down here a little bit. They're a little kind of higher level. Dave Barry asked, is there a feature or aspect of Laravel Cloud that you and the team are particularly proud of?
I think the ease of onboarding and ease of getting your first deployment out there is really, it's a huge step forward for the Laravel ecosystem. It doesn't require any server management knowledge. You can get your first app or starter kit out there in like a minute. This is just a huge leap from where we've been historically with getting started with Laravel. And I think it's going to be really great for onboarding sort of, you might say, the next generation of Laravel developers that are kind of coming up. Either they're, getting out of college or they're just getting into programming. And, I think the bar has moved in terms of what people expect, the experience to be like deploying to production. A lot of great companies and other ecosystems have sort of moved that bar higher and made it so easy to get started. And we're kind of doing that with Laravel Cloud. And that's what I'm really most excited about, as well as the ease of creating multiple environments, preview deployments, things like that is going to be such a huge step forward.
Absolutely. Awesome. Cool. And I think you've touched on this in different respects, but just as a general question, what things are on the roadmap for Laravel Cloud after launch?
Oh gosh, lots of different stuff. So there's sort of at a variety of different levels, right? Like we'll continue to explore how we can best serve larger companies, enterprises on Laravel Cloud. That will be one work stream. We'll continue to explore other databases or services that people might want to integrate into Laravel Cloud. Could be things like, I mean, just off the top of my head, could be different CMSs people want integration with, different databases that people want integration with, whether that's Mongo or Dynamo or Elasticsearch or whatever. A lot of that will be driven, I think, by honestly just the customer feedback post-launch and sort of responding to the community. So while we have sort of an overall roadmap of what we think is going to happen, we always want to keep an open mind to what actually happens when the product is in people's hands and we see what people are really wanting. And then, of course, going much further down the line, we'll expand into those other PHP frameworks, other CMSs, and even potentially other languages.
Awesome. I think that's a great point too for the community of I think that the team is open to hearing your suggestions and what you might want, right? So once you get in there and get a chance to play with the framework and play with the platform, then, reach out and make some suggestions. And there's a good chance that other people across the community might have similar ideas as well. So probably scratch your own itch there, people. So please do that.
Yeah. And just a comment to your other answer that you gave before this answer, Taylor, I'm still really involved with the schools and just even students through the meetup groups and whatnot. And so many students, I feel like, just even while they're in school, they're already making apps with Laravel. It's not just like, hey, I'm working with PHP. It's like, no, specifically like, yeah, Laravel's really cool. Like, look at what I'm doing with it. So
yeah, that's great. Yeah. And so hopefully it'll be easier for them to get their projects out there. And yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we did it. We got through our list of questions. Again, I think hopefully we've answered and spoken to a lot of the questions that people had within the community, but there will be more questions as we go. So we're all very much looking forward to the launch of Laravel Cloud and getting those further questions answered and getting our chance to get our hands on the platform. Taylor, thank you once again for joining us today, taking the time out of your busy day. I know there's a lot cooking, as the kids say at Laravel these days, so we really appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a lot of fun.
Cool. Sorry, go ahead, Margaret.
I was going to say, thank you so much. Even through the years and everything, it's been super awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Seeing what you're up to.
On one more note, I do have one more question. This is, feel free to don't answer if you don't want. This is a controversial question this time of year, but as we approach the end of the year, the movie Die Hard, do you consider that to be a Christmas movie or not?
So this is going to be a very controversial answer. I've never even seen Die Hard.
Oh! Well, there you go.
But maybe this is the year I watch, and I'll shoot you a tweet and I'll let you know what I think.
All right. Well, thank you once again for joining us, Taylor. We all really appreciate it very much. The community appreciates it, and we're, like we said, very much looking forward to the launch of Laravel Cloud.
All right. Thanks,
all right.
Joe.
Take care. Have a great day.
Thanks so much.
There you go. And there you have it, everybody. Yes, thank you once again, Taylor, for joining us and answering all of those questions. We have a few community notes, sort of slides to get through here before we wind things down for the stream and the year, actually. So, Margaret, I will hand things over to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Dan. It's crazy how it's already been a year of us doing this. So our next meetup, you can join us on January 28th, 2025. We're going to have our next speaker there. We're going to start off the year strong. So make sure to join us there, and I'll give you some details about the meetups. And so you'll have all the notifications ready at your availability. Anyways, so for JetBrains Giveaway rules, here's some more rules. Again, you can scan that QR code. We're going to be announcing the winner very soon on January 7th. And then you'll get an email from our community manager, Lee, if you have won. And to stay connected with us, make sure to follow us on X at Laravel WW Meetup for all of our announcements that we'll be posting, any future speakers. If you're looking for speakers, if you want to communicate with us about any ideas that you have for any future meetups, we'd love to hear any of your thoughts. So please connect with us on X, and we will use that as a medium to chat with you.
Yeah, I think that is a great point. We'll definitely be looking for speakers for 2025. So please, if you have an idea for a talk you'd like to give, go ahead and fill out that form on the website.
Awesome. And for more notifications about the Laravel Worldwide Meetup and to not miss a single one, you can join us on meetup.laravel.com to sign up. So all you have to do is include your email and you'll get a notification every month about what's going on with the Laravel Worldwide Meetup. And again, thanks for watching us on YouTube. You can go check out the Laravel channel. The subscriber count is growing. We're doing lots of cool stuff. Laravel's doing a lot of cool stuff. So if you want to find out what's going on with Laravel, make sure to hit them up and subscribe to their channel, hit that notification bell, whatever you got to do to stay up to date with what's going on in Laravel.
And there we have it. And like we said, Margaret, just as a moment of reflection here, it's hard to believe this is the 12th episode we've hosted already. It was about this time last year. The team here at Vehicle, we were talking about taking over the Laravel Worldwide Meetup and running it month to month, and we definitely felt a lot of pressure to carry on the tradition first set out by Frank, and then also, obviously do well by the Laravel name and then make the community proud. So we hope we've done that. We certainly appreciate everyone tuning in. I'd like to thank personally the team at Vehicle that's worked hard behind the scenes putting all these episodes together. My co-host Margaret for sticking this through with me. All the incredible speakers we've had that have come on and shared our knowledge, and most of all to you, the community, for joining us every month. So we're looking very much forward to 2025 and what it has in store. And thank you once again for joining us. Margaret, any final words from you before we sign off?
Yeah, I most certainly echo everything that you said, Dan. It was a pleasure working with you as well here. It's been super awesome. And again, thanks to the Vehicle team for supporting all of the stuff that we've been able to do this whole year. Also, thank you to everyone that I spoke to on LinkedIn. Everyone had such amazing questions for this meetup. And then also with all the conversations that we've had all this year, it's been super awesome to see. And also to all the people that are commenting in the comments, we read them all. So it's super awesome to see all the engagement and the activeness in the community. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to what's going on next year. And thanks so much for being a part of it. Really appreciate it.
Chat was bumping today. Thank you very much. So yes, if you have a holiday time coming up with friends and family over the next couple of months, please enjoy that time. Please travel safely. Happy New Year to everybody. And like we said, we're looking forward to 2025. Take care, everybody. We'll see you in January.
See ya.